Panthers tight end Jordan Matthews said that it's just 1 week. It's a new year and a new team, and what happened last weekend in New Orleans is not a continuation of the past. Is he right? Well, I guess we'll find out on Sunday.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Wednesdays throughout the entirety of the regular season, I'm right here on the show answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is either at me or DM me. And of course, feel free to click the follow button at Julian Council to get your questions in for next week's edition of the show here on Locked On Panthers. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find a qualified candidate you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Week 2. Week 1 is over with. Week 2 is now our focus as the Panthers have their home opener on Sunday against New Orleans, against the Los Angeles Chargers. I will get the team name right eventually. Panthers hosting Chargers on Sunday, 1 o'clock. And obviously the vibes have been off all week, and I feel like this is a fan base that is in desperate need of a win on Sunday afternoon. How are the Panthers going to do that? Well, it's Friday, which means going to give you my keys to victory for the Panthers' upcoming game this Sunday. Starting off with key number 1. And based off of what we saw last week from Bryce Young, it's clear that he has next to no confidence. I felt like what I had seen from him during training camp would carry over to the beginning of the season with a new head coach, new scheme, new weapons, new offensive line, a run-first attack. I felt like Bryce Young was set up for success. But what we saw on Sunday was clearly a quarterback who appears to be broken at this point in time and needs to be built right back up. And the best way to do that is to take pressure off of him. Dave Canales talked about way back in the spring that Bryce Young just has to do his 1/11th. And last week, he did not do that. The other 10 guys who are out there primarily on offense, I felt like, for the most part, did their jobs to about an average level, where Bryce Young did not do that last week. He was terrible. When you look at the entirety of the game, the Panthers sucked on offense. They sucked almost worse on defense, and probably giving up 9 straight touchdown drives, or scoring drives rather. And then on special teams, they're also bad. So when the entire team effort is as bad as it was last year or last week, you don't go out there and bench the quarterback like a lot of people wanted to see going into this game. Didn't make a lot of sense. That was not the game to go off of and say, yeah, Bryce Young, he's got to go. The entire team looked bad. So he has to have pressure taken off of him. And the best way to do that is to run the ball. Do what Dave Canales said he was going to do about being stubborn about running the football. Last week, Miles Sanders, 5 carries, 22 yards. Chuba Hubbard, 6 carries, 14 yards, 11 total running back carries. That ain't going to cut it. For this week or in the future, you have to be able to actually run the football. I know they tried at times. Dave Canales said on Monday after reviewing the game tape that he feels like they ran the ball as much as they wanted to. You only wanted to run the ball 11 times with Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard. I just can't believe that. I understand that the situation of the game dictates maybe a different game plan moving forward when you get punched in the face immediately and you're down 17-0. But still, they had opportunities where they could have run the ball and chose not to, like on the first play of the game where they throw the ball, Bryce gets picked off, and it was all downhill from there. I do not want to see a pass on the first play. I want to see them running it with Chuba. I want to see them running it with Miles Sanders. I want to see them taking the pressure off of Bryce. And it's going to be difficult. The Chargers, after only 1 week, have the number 1 run defense according to EPA in the NFL. The Panthers are the number 32 EPA offense, which means they're dead last in the NFL after 1 week. That can change, of course, this week on Sunday as they face off against LA. Number two, defensively, they clearly have some problems, and I don't know what's going to solve them. They're going to be better than what we saw on Sunday. There's no way that they're going to go out there and play every game where they give up a scoring drive to the other team starters. It wasn't until Dennis Allen and the Saints called up the dogs before the Panthers could actually stop them. I'm not expecting the Chargers and then the Raiders and everybody they play this year. Maybe the Chiefs can do it. I don't expect every team that they play this year to go down and score every single possession. So the Panthers defense will get better in that respect. I don't know how much better they're going to get against the run, but they need to find a way to stop the run this Sunday if they want to win this game. Justin Herbert, solid player, got some new young weapons on the outside. They're still trying to get incorporated there in LA. I feel like with Jim Harbaugh, they're going to want to run the football, impose their will at the line of scrimmage. And the Panthers defensive line has been pushed around the last couple of seasons, especially last week, even with Derek Brown, who's now out for the season with that meniscus injury. We'll see him next year, which means guys like A'Shaun Robinson, who, according to PFF, had the highest grade for the Panthers last week in that loss against New Orleans. Shai Tuttle was brutal last year, was brutal last week. He's got to start doing something and earn that money the Panthers have given him. Terrible contract by Scott Bitter and Samir Sulaiman, where the Panthers couldn't get out of that this offseason. That's the only reason he's here right now. But he's got to play. He's got to play much better than what we saw. Jaden Peavy, he's got to step up now. Nick Thurman, Lord Brian Ray. The Panthers desperately need to find something on the defensive line if they're going to have any chance at winning on Sunday and winning moving forward. Because I feel like D-lines a lot of times win games, and they did not win for them last week. Gave 180 yards on the ground last week, 4.9 yards per carry. Last week, too, after the Panthers game, we got this game on CBS here locally in Charlotte. You got a glimpse at the Raiders and the Chargers. The Chargers had a lot of trouble being able to run the football in the first half. We talked about that yesterday on the crossover with David Drogemeyer. And in the second half, things changed. J.K. Dobbins had 131 of his 135 yards come in that second half. Gus Edwards didn't really run the ball as much as they rode the hot hand. They got to be able to control Dobbins and Edwards. It's a solid running back room, but this isn't an overwhelming running back room, just like the Panthers one. I feel like with Chuba and Miles, pretty solid. What the Chargers have, pretty solid. These aren't guys that should be dominating you. And that offensive line, you cannot let them dominate you in this game. The defense has to find a way to control the line of scrimmage and stop the run. Otherwise, we're looking at potentially another route and a team that can't get off the field like they couldn't last week against New Orleans. And then number three, Jordan Matthews, Panthers tight end, formerly a wide receiver. He was speaking to the media in the locker room earlier this week, and this was put out on the Panthers social media saying it's only 1 week. It's week one. It's not a continuation. It's a new team. It's a new year. Okay, if that's the case, then the Panthers need a number three. Show some pride. There's a lot of guys who have been here in Carolina, like Shaq Thompson, like J.C. Horn at this point in time. A lot of guys that have been around with Taylor Moton for some number of years, and all they've done is lose. Show some freaking pride and leadership, man. Shaq Thompson, I love Shaq. Think he's a great player for the Panthers. But when you're celebrating and you're getting your ass kicked, that's just a bad look for someone who's a leader and a captain on this team. This team needs to get it together, man. Words I can't say, but they need to get it together because it's just unacceptable to come out week one and lose 47-10, to give up 9 straight scoring drives, to turn the ball over 3 times. It's unacceptable to look like that ever. But especially after a long offseason, plenty of time to get prepared for this opponent, to change the way people feel about you. And this is how you come out and look. If they have any pride at all, they come out and they play their ass off and they get a win on Sunday. Yeah, if they lose, maybe they lose by a last-second field goal. But if they go out there and they lose by double digits again and get embarrassed, then there's not much else that we can say about this team moving forward. They'll be 0-2. And yes, it will be a continuation of the past. Jordan Matthews may not have been here last year. Same thing with Jordan Fuller and Nick Scott and a lot of guys on this team who've come in this offseason. But that stench of being the Panthers and losing would have been all over them after 2 weeks if we see the same performance that we saw last Sunday in New Orleans. So let's see it. New team, new year. Show me that that's the case, Jordan. All right. So those are the keys to victory on Sunday. Take the pressure off of Bryce. Got to run the damn ball. Got to be able to stop the run after getting gashed last week and gashed all last season. And then show some pride. You guys put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears playing this game. And what you put out there on the field last Sunday was an embarrassment. And I hope that you were embarrassed. Let's see if you were, because if you weren't, then, well, we got bigger problems here in Carolina. Okay, so got a couple of questions heading into week 2. Look at the injury reports. We'll do that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. In fact, 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. You've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you today. Now through September 22nd, the clock is ticking. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And if the Panthers are going to play like they played last Sunday in New Orleans, moving forward, you're probably going to want to be able to watch all the other out-of-market games wherever you live. And I love YouTube TV. It is awesome. And if you have DirecTV, I believe you still can't watch a lot of what's going on ESPN and all that. So maybe you want to switch your provider. All you got to do is just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. I have a few questions heading into this week 2 matchup between the Panthers and the Chargers, the home opener at Bank of America Stadium. And hopefully everyone is going to be charged up to go. No pun intended, playing the Chargers. Sorry about that. I really did not mean to do that. But still, it's first game at home in a while. The preseason doesn't count. I know last week was tough. I hope anyone who has tickets is willing to go out there. And I totally understand if you don't want to go. But I'm hoping that the Panthers crowd can be as fired up as reasonably expected based off of recent results and in particular last week's result. And I know that the Roaring Riot is having their kickoff jam at Noda Brewing on Saturday. So if you don't have tickets for that, go out there and support them and at least just fellowship. Sit here, talk to your fellow Panther fans, and you can talk about how upset you are with David Tepper and the team. Just at least get out there, put a smile on, enjoy some good beer, some live music as well, and try to just enjoy that aspect of it. Because if the worst thing is the game, I guess that's not that. I mean, it's obviously not ideal, but you can at least enjoy the tailgate, enjoy the experience up until kickoff. That's a positive, right? Okay, so looking at a couple of things here as far as just questions I have heading into this week 2 game. Tommy Tremble, Ian Thomas both did not play last week. Ian Thomas currently is on IR, so he's going to miss at least the first 4 weeks. And I think he can come off of it right on that Saturday heading into the game in Chicago, but I feel like he's probably going to miss that game as well. Ian, so Tom, he's out for at least probably first 4 or 5 games of the season, whereas Tommy Tremble was limited this week with a hamstring and back injury. So he was limited on Wednesday, limited on Thursday. I'm recording this before Dave Canales has his press conference on Friday. Maybe I'll go to record moving after this, depending on like my timing on Fridays and all that. But looks like Tommy Tremble is going to potentially play on Sunday. And I think they definitely need him to play, looking just at the PFF grades. Jordan Matthews and JT Sanders both graded out like at a 45, and that's just not good at all. And the Panthers, and I was concerned about this last week, not having your top two tight ends, and I get it. You hate Ian Thomas because all you think he is a guy who's a receiving tight end, which clearly is not. They're asking him to block. So if you look at it from that standpoint, he was just, another player that's not really worth having that kind of attention towards, as a lot of Panther fans have, where I get it. He never lived up to what you thought he was going to be his rookie year. And they haven't asked him to be that the last couple seasons. They're not going to ask him to be that this season. That's just the truth. Not necessarily a defense, just the truth. Just please move on with your mental space when it comes to Ian Thomas. So the Panthers do need him and Tommy Tremble if they want to be able to run the ball effectively, because JT Sanders last week got baptized by Chase Young. There's another play on that third down that was a holding. Next play, Bryce Young gets sacked for the first of 3 times by Alontae Taylor. He's a young guy. He's going to be good for them in the future. Just early on, it's going to be difficult to rely on him in the run game. Same thing with Jordan Matthews, who saw blocker as a wide receiver, a little bit different as far as now having to be on more of the line of scrimmage, right there with the offensive line and having to block as a tight end. So they do need Tommy Tremble to help them out in the run game. And I imagine that probably was part of the reason they didn't run the ball as effectively. Maybe they didn't want it as much as they wanted to, even though Dave says they did last week in New Orleans. So they need him out there to play to help out in that regard. Another thing, we're looking at injuries. Johnny Hekker kind of got lit up a little bit last week in that game, was slow to get up. And that is something that has lingered as he has a back injury. And looking at the injury report, he did not practice on Wednesday, was limited on Thursday. And he was talking about how he's going to let the team know if he thinks he can go or not, whether they got to get an emergency punter. Hopefully he'll be good to go because he's still a good punter for them. If the Panthers aren't able to have Johnny Hekker, then I think we'll probably see a move made either later on Friday or earlier on Saturday, where they'll bring in somebody to take care of those punting duties. Just not ideal to have somebody not be able to at least be with the team all week in that regard. I know you're saying his job's just to punt, but I think there's a little bit more nuance to it in the special teams aspect. That was pretty bad last week down in New Orleans. So wondering what's going to happen with Johnny Hekker. Another question for me as well. Dave Canales talked about, he was asked about this earlier this week. Deontay Johnson, he had 2 receptions, 19 yards, 6 targets. Now, a couple of those targets were just Bryce Young completely missed him. There's one in the end zone that he missed. That was a touchdown. Like, that was a rub route. Now, they scored a touchdown on that drive. But that first play right there, Bryce had him, just missed him. Another time later on that drive, Bryce went to him, but it's double coverage. He wasn't going to make that play. The opening drive of the game was Deontay Johnson. Another time on a third down, Deontay Johnson was wide open and Bryce missed. So at least 2 of those 4 misses were balls that, Bryce has got to complete that third down. He's got to complete that first down and goal for a touchdown. And then he didn't even really look that open to me on that first play of the game, but at least 2 of those 4 got to be completion. But either way, like that would have been a touchdown. It would probably been like 4 receptions for 60-something yards and a touchdown. You're feeling good about that. But still, I think there's a bigger expectation out of what Deontay Johnson is going to provide to Carolina in the passing game than what we saw last week. So I'm very curious to see how Dave Canales helps to get Deontay Johnson more involved, because even 6 targets, that feels light. 10, 11, 12 targets if he's going to be the first read. Now, he's got to be open, of course, and I felt like he was open for the most part. I know Next Gen Stats had him below the league average at 2.58 yards of separation on average last week. Still, there were times where the quarterbacks just got hit those plays. So curious to see how that works out. And Xavier Legette, speaking guys who didn't necessarily get open, but was able to make plays last week anyways, he's got to be wide receiver 3 now over Jonathan Mingo. If Mingo's the first guy trying it out there in the 3 wide receiver set, I don't really know what we're doing here. I guess Legette's missed a lot of time. Maybe he has to know the playbook at this point in time. But still, Mingo's a liability. They only have 5 receivers. David Moore, I would rather see him out there over Mingo at this point in time. And it's not like I'm saying just throw away Mingo, but right now you kind of just got to throw away Mingo because you can't afford to have a guy who can't secure the football out there. Your quarterback's already somebody who's turning the ball over. You can't have a receiver who's going to drop it, who's going to fumble it too. So we'll see how that turns out. Looking at the rest of the injury report heading into this game, Jadeveon Clowney did not practice with an ankle on Wednesday, was limited on Thursday. It does not seem to be something that's going to keep him out. Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis, both of those guys limited on Wednesday and Thursday. Hunt with a shoulder, Lewis with a groin. We'll see how that works out. Josh Nijman, who's, of course, been off pup for a while now. He had a tibia fracture that had to be surgically repaired again. That's what had him on pup and had him out for all that time. He had been limited last week, and on Wednesday, he was a full participant for the first time, really all training camp and practice so far this season on Thursday. So that's good news. Raheem Blackshear did not practice on Thursday because of a personal matter. So hopefully that gets figured out and he's ready to go and all is well at home. Taylor Moton was out for rest and should be good to go. Then Josie Jewell with the groin was limited on Thursday. We'll see how serious that is as Dave Canales will speak again to the media on Friday following, I guess, after I've recorded this podcast. So that's where the injury report's heading into this game against the Chargers on Sunday. But back to what Jordan Matthews said. It's 1 week. It's not a continuation. It's a new team. It's a new year. This fan base desperately needs a win on Sunday. And we'll talk more about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. And I got a free one for you. 1 Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on PrizePicks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on PrizePicks because it's gone when September ends. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. The Panthers need to win on Sunday. It's just pretty flat out. That's what needs to happen. It's not a must win in terms of their season is over. Now, these stats, we see them every year. Teams that start off 0-2 typically do not make the playoffs. Totally understand that. Those were never my expectations here. And even when I asked y'all last week heading into that week 1 matchup in New Orleans, what your expectations were like 6 or 7 wins, but really what you wanted was just them to be competent. And what we saw on Sunday was not competence in any facet, from the offense, from the defense, from special teams. If you're watching on YouTube, of course you saw I just turned off the light by accident on special teams, which basically is that's what the Panthers, the lights were off. But God, on special teams coaching, they got all of it wrong on Sunday, and they have to be much better. And I really feel like this fan base desperately needs just something good to happen, to feel good about themselves and not to have the constant doom and gloom. Like I love when people are like, try to say like I'm negative, and then all the negativity I've seen thrown at this team. Like I just call how I see it. And I guess you guys are doing the same thing. And yeah, people are extremely online, man. I had somebody asking me the other day about like, am I the only one who feels like, yeah, I mean, that sucked on Sunday, but it's like, it's not that big of a deal. It's like, yeah, I know plenty of people who, he didn't say it was not a big deal, but he laughed at it because you gotta laugh at your pain. And I told the person who DM'd me, I was like, you know what? You're not the only person. I have plenty of friends throughout that game in our group chat that were just completely laughing at just the operation. And you got to be able to do it, because if you can't laugh at it, then you probably just need to move on with the rest of your day and go out to the farmer's market. And no, as I had so many people asking me this on Twitter, and I do appreciate y'all knowing to ask me when it's farmer's market Sunday. No, it's not yet. It's not yet. It's only 1 week. It's the second week of the season. No, it's not time. But do go check out your local farmer's market on Saturday morning, though. But on Sunday, no. Be there. Watch the game. If it goes sideways, like it did last Sunday, somebody asked me, so farmer's market, I did tell them, just go ahead and go outside and enjoy the rest of your day, because it looked like it was a beautiful Sunday. I don't know if the weather is going to be kind of rainy this weekend in the region, so we'll see what it looks like on Sunday, which means even more for the Panthers to be able to run the football and be able to stop the run if it's going to be adverse conditions. Either way, there's just got to be some positive thing to take away, and a win is really what this Panthers fan base needs on Sunday. No moral victories. That's not a thing in the NFL. It's hard to win football games, as we have seen year in and year out. I just would love to be able to come out here on Sunday and talk to y'all about something positive instead of, oh, well, they lost again. It's getting old. Really, really old. The Chargers are 4.5-point favorites, according to our friends over at FanDuel. When talking to David, I actually recorded that on Wednesday. They were 6.5-point favorites. So that has been bet down by the public, just like it was last week in New Orleans. And the Saints had no trouble covering. The Panthers, though, this week, I hope. I don't have a guess for you as far as how this game's going to go, other than I do expect that this team is going to play a lot better than they played last week. There's just no way that, I guess it's possible. I just have a hard time believing after what they did last week that they're going to follow up this week and have the same kind of pitiful performance. So we'll see what works out, man. Like I said earlier, Jordan Matthews said 1 week. It's not a continuation of last year. It's a new team. It's a new year. All right, Jordan, we're going to find out on Sunday, because if we see anything reminiscent of what we saw last week, then yeah, it's a continuation. And for you as a new player, it may not be a continuation, but for the fan base, it is. It's a continuation of excitement, then constant disappointment, and not even allowed after even 1 week to even feel decently good about their team, because there was nothing about that. There was a couple individuals, but really there wasn't much about that game that write home about and to make you feel good about. Okay, well, they lost, but there's still areas where if they do this better, do that better, like they're gonna be fine. No, it's everything needs to be better for them to, in order to even be close in this game this Sunday and moving forward. And of course, I'll talk about it on Sunday live here on YouTube after the game is over. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe, follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where I'll be back with you next Wednesday to answer your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. Start getting those questions in following the Panthers game on Sunday against the Chargers. And in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding. And I'll talk to y'all Sunday live here, approximately 5 o'clock Eastern time, to break down, fingers crossed, a Panthers win against Chargers and Dave Canales' first win, and Bryce Young looking like maybe he can be the guy. Fingers crossed. That's what I'm hoping to talk about on Sunday here on Locked On Panthers.